Dyna chi, mae'r cyfarfod yma'n cael ei recordio achos yn anffodus mae yna nifer di deud bod nhw'n methu bod yma, felly fydd o'n handi wrth gwrs bydd i fedru cynnig y recordiad i bobl sydd yn methu bod yma, lle fydda ni'n ddarlledu fo ar y we ac i ddibenion cofnodi hefyd. Ia, felly, yn gyntaf ga i groesawu chi gyd yma, diolch i chi gyd am ddod yma, a gawn ni ddiolch i chi hefyd am yr holl ymatebion da chi wedi bod yn yrru i ni. Da ni wir yn gwerthfawrogi. Fel da chi'n gwybod, mae'n adnoddau ni'n eitha cyfyngedig, a mae jyst mor werthfawr bod ni'n cael y wybodaeth mae gennych chi yn syth o lygad y ffynon mewn ffordd. Felly, da ni yn hynod o ddiolchgar i chi ac yn gwerthfawrogi'r berthynas yma sy'n datblygu'r rhyngtha ni. Dydy pethau mae'n hawdd, mae'n eitha heriol, ond da ni'n gobeithio drwy gydweithio, wrth gwrs, fydda ni'n medru cael rhyw fath o ddatrysiad yn y pen draw. Felly, o ran y trefniadau heddiw yma yn y cyfarfod yma, ga i jyst gofyn i chi gadwch meicroffon ar mute os na da chi'n siarad. A jyst, awr sydd gyda ni, felly mi fydden ni'n trio ffitio bob dim i fewn yr amser yna, lle a fydra ni godi llaw i fyny, a fydrwch chi fynd i reactions ar y diwedd a raise hand os da chi eisiau gofyn unrhyw gwestiwn, ond mi fydd yna gyfle ar y diwedd i ni ofyn cwestiynau. Felly, yn gryno mae Angela mynd i sôn amdan lle da ni anni ar hyn o bryd efo'r cynllun, ac ella chydig o'r adborth sydd wedi dod i law, a wedyn fydd Iwan wedyn o'r cyngor yn rhoi chydig o wybodaeth i ni am y gorchymyn yr cilffordd yma mae o'n mynd i fod yn sôn amdano fo. Felly, awr yn unig sgynna ni, felly awn ni'n syth wan i Angela.
Diolch Cat, a diolch i chi gyd am ddod yn rhybydd byr ni wedi rhoi wrthych chi. Ond jyst i ddeud eto, fel oedd Catrin yn sôn, mae'n jyst yn gret i cael gymaint o adborth gennych chi am sut mae pethau yn gweithio ar y ddeiar. Ac yn amlwg mae yna barnau hollol wahanol yn dod drwyddo ar y foment am sut mae'r cones yn effeithio ar yr ardal. So ar y cyfan o be dyn ni'n deall gennych chi amlwg le mae'r cones ar, maen nhw yn gweithio, ond wrth gwrs maen nhw yn achosi displacement sylweddol yn enwedig o gwmpas yr ardal, o gwmpas y caffi ac wrth gwrs o gwmpas tai pobl sydd yna hefyd. Felly mae yna dipyn o sylwadau wahanol wedi dod i fewn, so o'n gret i ddeall ar y cyfan be ydy barn pobl ar beth sydd yn ddigwydd ar y foment. Ond fwy nag hynny, rili, mae Iwan Amlwg yma o Cyngor Gwynedd i gyflwyno y syniad o'r cliffordd dwi eisiau ddeud, ond dwi ddim yn hollol siŵr be ydy'r term Gymraeg, felly rural clearway, fel nathon ni sôn yn yr e-bost wrthych chi. Mae hyn yn mega pwysig bod chi yma, achos mae Iwan Amlwg angen eich mewnbwn chi a'ch syniadau chi ar yr ystyriaethau rili sydd angen gael i cadw mewn golwg os mae'r clearway yma yn mynd i fewn i le yn yr ardal. Ond hefyd, fel dwi wedi sôn, mae yna unrhyw un sydd ddim yma, fel mae Liam wedi cysylltu'n barod yn deud bod o yn Iwerddon. So mae'r cyfarfod yn cael ei recordio fel bod o'n gallu glywed pob dim ac hefyd roed mewnbwn, achos dyn ni eisiau wybod yn gyson rhwngthoch chi gyd, basically be ydy'ch teimladau am yr potential o hyn i ddigwydd. Felly, os da ni'n gallu cadw cwestiynau tan y ddiwedd, dwi'n meddwl, a wedyn na i gadeirio rhyw fath o sesiwn ar y ddiwedd, ond mae Iwan ap Trefor yma o'r adran Highways Priffyrdd Cyngor Gwynedd, so na i drosglwyddo syth iddo fo i gliro beth sy'n gallu ddigwydd yn yr ardal.
Helo, os da chi. So dwi'n meddwl ella sy well i fi cyflwyno'n hyn, so Iwan ap Trefor wedi gweithio ar rhan Cyngor Gwynedd ac yn gyffredinol fi sy'n edrych ar ôl y priffydd o rhan gyfrifol am unrhyw newid i'r briffordd. So mae yna'n cynnwys unrhyw newid i'r gwagliadau parcio, gwagliadau traffig gyffredinol, neu edrych am cyfleoedd i wneud prosiectau. Fel arfer mewn achosion fel hyn, da ni yn cael dipyn o galwadau enwedig yn y ddwy flynedd dwytha yn sôn am problemau efo parcio ag y fyna newid sydd wedi digwydd ag yn i'r pandemig yn niferoedd sy'n dod i ymweld â bob rhan o Wynedd, i fod yn onest. Felly, be da ni'n trio wneud ydy nid i bod yn trio wneud ydy trio taclo y problemau fel maen nhw'n dod yn sylw ni. Ond wrth gwrs, y broblem fwyaf sydd gennym ni ydy da ni'n gweithredu mewn canllawiau eitha llyfn o ran be da ni'n cael ei wneud a'r ffordd da ni'n cael cyflwyno pethau. Ac yn aml mae'r broses yn gallu fod yn rhwystredig iawn i nifer. Felly, ac yn aml da ni'n gofyn wneud penderfyniadau sy'n chydig bach yn wahanol. So, dwi'n meddwl yn achos yma, mi oeddwn ni wedi gofyn wrth arbenigwyr i wneud rhyw fath o gynllun ni o sut da ni'n mynd i ddatrys y broblem yr ardal. Yn anffodus, gafon ni ddim y cynllun yna mewn amser na chwaith mewn digon o detail iddyn ni gallu symud ymlaen efo cyn i'r gwyliau ha neu tymor gwyliau cychwyn. O gynlyniad hynna, wrth gwrs, wrth ni penderfynu cyflwyno y cons yn y llyfodau lle maen nhw i ceisio ddod dros y broblem. Ond y gwir amdani ydy, gan bod o gynnon ni'n rhyw fath o gynllun i'w ddilyn, mae cons wedi cael ei osod yn y lle oedden ni'n teimlo oedd angen osod nhw, lle da ni wedi adnabod lle oedd y broblemau. Felly dwi'n meddwl y cam cyntaf rili di rhoid o yn agored i chi fel tegolion i ddeitha ni pa fath o effaith mae'r cons ma wedi gael, ac oes na rhywbeth fydda ni'n neud yn y tymor byr fel symud y cons o gwmpas, fysa'n wir wneud gwahaniaeth i'ch gymuned.
Ydych chi eisiau pobl deud rwan?
Ie, dwi'n bosib i ni.
Oce, dwi'n gwybod mae yna lawer o deimladau rhy cry ar hyn, so ydy unrhyw un eisiau dod i fewn? Damien, would you like to come in, Damien? Because you've sent me several emails about your feelings about where the cones should be.
Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to figure out how to unmute my mic. Who has it benefited? Well, by placing the cones where they are, who has that benefited?
Me, actually.
All right, okay.
But, I don't want to, cut across the process of the meeting, but I think this is the problem with the whole system, is that we haven't all got together to know each other's problems, and we've all got different problems. And that's why I don't think the freeway idea is actually going to work. So as you asked the question, who it's benefited, my answer to that is I'm now able to walk down the driveway, which is off-road, and then onto the driveway and up the road to Nant, up to Liam and Debs's, my sons and my sisters, without having to walk up a 60-mile-an-hour road because there's parking on both sides. So from that point of view, it's benefited me. And I think what we're all missing here is actually listening to each person's problem and doing something specific about that, whilst also taking everybody else's consideration into the picture. So from that point of view, I think the Clearway idea, it didn't benefit you. It did benefit the points that I'd put forward, but I think we need a much bigger picture.
So yeah, it has benefited you, but it's just pushed the problem further down the road. That's my interpretation. It's ridiculous.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, and I think just to clear that up, Damien, and I think that's what Iwan is going to introduce, is the idea that, you know, there's no possibility of putting, well, we could put cones all the way down, obviously, but that's just, it seems bonkers.
But there would be disadvantage to that.
Exactly.
Because then the cafe would have, you know, beyond a certain time, no business. But once everybody's parked up, they're off for the day and there's no more parking. I think there's probably at the moment parking for, I don't know, 60 cars. But then that's, you know, a local business suffering as well. And I do think we have to look at it in lots of different chunks. So as Damien was speaking then, Damien, anybody living in the terrace needs somewhere to park.
Yes.
Everybody has pointed out that we need a speed limit. Okay, I appreciate that the tests have been carried out, and they say, oh, nobody's going at X number of miles an hour, so that's not needed. But I still believe, having driven down that road, that it is needed. We've got 2 bus stops, we've got a busy cafe, and even though I like the fact that the verge where I want to walk is now clear, I don't have to walk up the road, a 60-mile-an-hour road, in fear of my life or anybody else's. So all these things need to be taken into consideration. And I think, you know, we all value having the cafe there. It was built to attract business, which is much needed in the area. And we need to look at whether there's any scope for creating parking like at Penygyrid, hard standing on a verge, which can be charged for. I don't know, I'm not highways, obviously. And then I think there's another aspect, particularly for those living in the terrace, is there a possibility of the things you can have in town, i.e. no parking between such and such hours, i.e. before 7 o'clock in the mornings, in front of your house, say, Damien, and unless we all get together on it, then we're just kicking the can down the road.
I know what you're saying, but I appreciate the cafes there, and the cafe's a business, but there's never been this problem before to this extreme, and they've always done well. I mean, why not put a 2-hour limit in certain areas? Like you can only park there for 2 hours, or because all you're doing is pushing the problem further down the road. And unless there no parking's enforced all the way along, then someone's going to have the rubbish end of the stick, aren't they? And while you can walk up and down the road, I can't. Well, I can, but it's dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. Plus, I've got cars parked either side of the road outside my house. Well, and lay-by, and I can't park.
I suspect that's the reason that parking isn't created where there isn't room to walk. So even with hard standing, unless there's room for people to walk off the road, then it's not created. But I think highways needs to give us the bigger picture on this.
I was just, sorry, can I just come in there? I apologise, my camera doesn't work. So it's Jude. I was just going to say that, saying about people being able to walk, where the parking has been displaced to outside Damien's, but also now up towards the Red Dragon, up towards Glandinas, we've created an issue there where there is nowhere to walk now because the cars aren't able to park on the verge completely, they're partly on the road. And that's also left nowhere for people to walk. So it doesn't really, the cones where they are hasn't solved the problem, it has just moved the problem to somewhere else, and there's somewhere equally that isn't safe to walk. And I'm concerned about how far the traffic's going to be displaced, because this weekend people were parking on the back road by Clindy down there. So I'm not offering a solution, but any cones are just displacing people to somewhere else in Nant Gwynant, because they're coming and they're going to park somewhere that they can find parking.
Yeah, totally.
And to add to that, I think you could probably turn Gwynedd into a car park, but until you put a restriction on the parking in Nant Gwynant, they will always park in Nant Gwynant.
Okay. Is there anything, os na unrhyw un arall sy'n eisiau dod I fewn ar y cones?
Well, can I say something else?
Is it okay for Dylan to come in first, Eira, if that's
Sure,
all right? Just with the hands up,
yeah.
Hi. Yeah, I wanted to say the cones on the junction have made a difference. There was real safety problems there coming out from our way onto the main road. You couldn't see anything. So those cones on the junction there have helped. The cones on the left-hand side heading towards Bethgelert, they get moved a bit, so
They're
the cars
pulling them down,
cars
yeah.
sort of move this way till the visibility is reduced.
So
again.
I didn't have, no, I think it was the Easter weekend. It started off okay, and then slowly the cones were getting moved closer and closer to the junction. And by the last, I think it was the bank holiday, the Easter Monday, there was actually a van parked, which meant I couldn't see again. But the days leading up to that, there had been a bit of an improvement, but the cones are being moved. And this weekend, yeah, I'd just like to say that there were cars parked. So where the cones have pushed cars down, they're definitely pushing them further down towards Glandinas. And like Jude says, I don't know how far they'll keep going, but as far as they can. And there were cars parked out down by Llindy as well, which isn't a massive obstruction. So there was about 4 or 5 cars parked by the cattle grid at the end of our track on the actual road, though not on the track for Llindy. But it's just that problem that once people spot a couple of people parked, they're like, oh, look, that's a bit of a parking spot. So I can see that will quite soon become a bit of a funnel for cars that can't find somewhere to park, which isn't a massive problem for us. But I'm just thinking, you know, if a tractor comes down or if anything big's me, we've had fire engines parked there when there's been fires. So I just think it could cause a bit of a safety issue because, you know, the 10-mile Blind Nantmore Road is very, very narrow, you know, and it is kind of pushing people up there. So it's not a huge problem at the moment, but I can certainly see it becoming a problem relatively soon.
Okay, right, thank you very much for that. Eira, would you like to come back in?
Yeah, completely agree with Dylan and Becky that coming out onto that main road, the cones have, you know, made a big difference for us. So that is a great one. I think the things that we need to be given are some ideas from highways about how to resolve the issue. I mean, is there a possibility of always having one side of the road available for walking on, so that, as Jude says, not both sides of the road are parked on? And in my case, you know, if there was parking on one side and not the other, it would still give me somewhere to walk. Or would highways be saying, well, actually, verge parking is so dangerous for the people getting out of the cars, because they'll then walk to the other side, that isn't even a possibility. We need to be given really the technical possibilities for the parking. I can see that there's a million technical possibilities for residents parking, because it's kind of done everywhere, or done in lots of places and should be done here. But I think, you know, where there is a place to create parking safely, it should be done.
Okay. Well, luckily we've got you on here to tell us what the possibilities are. Just eisiau checio, os na unrhyw un arall eisiau just rhoi unrhyw adborth ar y cones, yn siŵr Paula, ti eisiau dod I fewn?
Hiya. I just wanted to say that having the cones, I understand it's for safety mainly, but for us, it's just reducing the parking for our potential customers. we no longer rely on hill walkers. We're mainly bookings only inside. So we've got people travelling from Penllyn, Bangor, Anglesey. They book a table beforehand, and then they might come once and find, you know, they might turn up half an hour late for their table because they can't find anywhere to park. And then in the end, it's going to be, oh, there's no point booking for Cafe Gwynant because you can't park. And then having these cones everywhere is just, the hill walkers will, I understand it's a problem everywhere, but the hill walkers will park half a mile away and walk, you know, to the Watkin Park, car park or whatever. But our customers won't park half a mile away and then walk to the cafe for their lunch. They'll just, you know, they'll just carry on driving, and it is a problem for us.
Okay, yeah. Okay, diolch Paulus. Yeah, really interesting. Okay. Ydy hwnna ddigon i chdi, sori?
Yndi, ie. Ie, dwi'n meddwl bod bobl wedi bod yn hyddiod o fuddiol iddyn ni cael y gwybodaeth sydd wedi dod yn sylw. Dwi'n meddwl oedd y syniadau o gynna ni yn wreiddiol, a syniadau lle bod ni wedi cyflwyno'n barod, ella ddim cweit yn gweithio a fydd y gymuned. Felly, dwi'n meddwl na cam nesaf iddyn ni ydy cymryd cam yn ôl os rhywbeth, a fwy na lai cymryd ystyriaeth bod dim a pawb wedi bod yn deud yn y cyfarfod yma a ddod i fyny efo rhyw fath o gynllun. Cynllun da ni'n teimlo ella fysa yn fuddiol i bawb, a bod yn amlwg, tydi pethau ddim mor du a gwyn ac oeddwn ni'n meddwl oedd ar y cychwyn. So, o hynny, dwi'n meddwl mi fyddwn ni'n gofod mynd yn ôl ac ail edrych ar y sefyllfa. Yn amlwg, dim just cymadol o parcio ydy'r atab. Mae angen sicrhau bod y parcio yn gweithio byd pawb sy'n gweithredu yn yr ardal.
Okay, so mae hynny'n golygu i fi ystyried y syniad o y rural clearway am wan, ydy o?
Be mae'n olygu ydy fydd ni'n cyflwyno y clearway heb bod yn cael effaith negyddol ar rhai bobl sydd yn y gymuned. A felly, marn ni ydy lle fydd o ddim y ffordd gorau ymlaen i cyflwyno ar frys.
Okay. Just i egluro oherwydd fydd na, fydd o'n just delio hefo'r holl lle yn un ffordd, ie? Os dyn ni'n rhoi'r clearway i fewn, so fydd na ddim bosibilrwydd o gweithredu'n wahanol ar gyfer y sefyllfeydd wahanol dyn ni wedi glywed amdan heddiw, ie?
Na fo, so trwy gylwyno fo y pryder mwyaf fi ydy'r effaith mae'n wedi cael ar y busnes y caffi. A felly, os da ni'n mynd i gylwyno hwnna wan dos gyfnod y ha, ie, so mae'n gallu fod yn broblem.
Yeah, okay. Okay, Dan, would you like to come in?
How would a clearway work? Sorry, I'm being dim. How would the clearway work then? What's the system work?
Yeah, so we do have a clearway in place at the moment in Penigwyd and Pen-y-Pass area. At the moment, that clearway is for the carriageway only, so it restricts it prevents vehicle from parking on the carriageway itself. So in this case, if we introduce it, it wouldn't prevent any parking on the verges, just on the road. However, it is possible to introduce like a secondary measure to coincide with that clearway, which prevents parking on verges or footways. We've done that on Bont Briwat. So if you drive on Bont Briwat, there are signs every now and again stating that you're not allowed to park on the cycleway that we built by the side of the new road there.
So ultimately, it would have an effect across the entire area, so there would be no flexibility ultimately at all.
and the reason behind the no flexibility is because we can't demarcate areas where you can park on the verge, where you can't. We can't make it clear for the consumer. Therefore, it would have to be the whole section.
So including the lay-by, yeah, including the lay-by outside the cafe. That would
no,
be clear way as well, just because it's one section.
Yeah, so there is a road which runs opposite the A road, and it's a separate road, and therefore that is a separate identity. So it's not the same road. So you could define that section separately.
Okay, Jude.
And is the clearway just proposed for where the cones are at the moment? Where is it proposed for, the actual clearway?
We were going to do it all the way from. We were thinking of doing it from the top of the hill, just after the cafe, the Dragon Hostel, all the way to about 100 meters away from the junction, which goes into the car park. So you would have introduced the whole area essentially to prevent parking on the carriageway or on the carriageway and the verges.
Okay, and how would that impact the parking for the Red Dragon? Because they park on the verge already.
Exactly, that would have meant that they would have been affected. Okay.
Thank you. And when you say past the junction, you mean if you came down past Gwynant Drive and turned right as far as where the pavement is that where you would mean?
So we'll be quite a significant area essentially, to make sure that the parking problems wouldn't occur within a particular area.
Great, thank you.
Damien, would you like to come in?
Yeah, I mean, if the clearway was put in place, obviously my biggest issue, or one of my biggest issues, is I've nowhere to park. If I leave the house, go out, when I come back, I can't park anywhere. I'm certainly not going to park on the side of the road or the side of the verge because I think it's dangerous. So that'd be hypocritical. But if the clearway was introduced, obviously we couldn't park on the side of the road. Yeah.
No, but obviously within the designated bays on the side road and within the parking in Gwynant, and also on there's a road that runs next to the car park as well. Obviously that their areas will be unaffected.
Would there be any way of giving the cafe some designated space and the residents some designated space? Because I think that would make things move a little bit further forward, and it'd probably please quite a few people. Me, certainly.
Yeah, it's the question. We obviously the highways, the logic behind the highway is that it's owned by everyone and it's for the public.
Yeah,
because the public generally owns the highway, so you can't actually physically, any particular person can't own a section of the highway. Yeah. So that's the general idea. So any measures that would need to look at and be introduced would have to be for the benefit of everyone in the community. So in terms of parking, we would have to give consideration that it would have to be consideration of, well, how would we know that particular car is for the customer of that particular cafe and not people parking there all day to go up Snowdon. So it's them kind of regulations that we need to work out.
Yeah, because you could have residence permits and you put the permit on your car. Yeah,
but it's something we can look at, but our policy at the moment for resident parking is that it would have to be an area where there's at least 5 households without any off-street parking provision. So I understand that there's only one property or, without any off-street parking position in this area. Therefore, you wouldn't.
I don't know, to be honest.
There are 3 there. There are 3 in your
There's 4.
section 4.
Yeah, with majority of them have on off-street parking provisions. So as a result,
I don't think so.
Yeah. So as a result, it doesn't quite come up to the regulars. But if it did, if you had evidence that he met the criteria, it would be definitely something that we could look at.
Drive past, have a look. But I mean, you got the cafe as well. I mean, obviously, would their staff need a provision for parking? Would that come into account?
No, it's only for residents, unfortunately. Businesses don't can form part of a resident parking scheme.
Paul, I can see your hand up for a while. Would you like to chip in there?
I just wanted to say that when I get into work at 8:30 in the morning, I struggle to park my car. So, you know, for the rest of my staff, obviously most of them are in at 8 o'clock in the morning. But when I come in at past, I can't get a space to park. And I had to park the other day on the other side of the Chymuned junction. So I had to walk, you know, quite far to get to work. And so it hasn't happened before, and I know it's because of the volume of people that are going up Snowdon or whatever, but I just feel like restricting the parking is just not going to have any benefit for the cafe at all.
Okay, thank you, Paula. Okay, so Iwan, I know there's obviously people would be frustrated because these problems have been brought up for a long time now, but could we outline what the next steps are now and how long it might take for everybody to be aware?
Can I make one point before
of course, yeah, come on in.
That comes in? Apart from the problem of the safety issue of the parking on the verges, if it was possible in any place to make it safe, I don't know what the criteria are. There is also the problem that the verges are soft. So any section where cars drive off again, maybe twice a day, and unless something is done to consolidate the verges, i.e. have them possible to drive on, we are going to end up with verges that are complete mud from the top of the Brindinat Hill to where you discussed the freeway would be. If there is parking on those this summer, we need to do something so that they don't just end up as mud verges, because then the rest of us can't walk on them for the rest of the year, basically. You know, at Penygyrid, they've put, you know, I don't know what you call it, whether you call it gridding, you know, it looks like grass, but it isn't. So there is a provision and it looks nice all year round. So we do need something like that before all the verges are covered in mud. And then my other point, before we, you know, discuss what possibilities there are, I think the problems at Penypas, then Penygyrid, have been looked at without taking the Nant Gwynant area into consideration. And so more cars are coming down here. In fact, on the bank holiday weekend, I watched the people queuing for the bus. I have got a picture I can send you. And of course, people are coming down here to park to get the bus up to Penypas. So there were 12 people in that queue. So that is potentially 6 cars parked in Nant Gwynant, and they take the bus up to where they want to go.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Rather than going
It's
over
free,
to
isn't it?
Paris and on Paris to park
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It's free parking. Why are people going to pay for parking when there's a free car park in the village, which is being used as a car park?
Okay, right, that's interesting. Okay, thank you very much for that.
Okay,
It's surprising because obviously the bus is only every 2 hours. So one of the things we'd really like to encourage people to do is to use that bus more and to park further out somewhere like Portmadog. But the feedback that we're getting is that's not, people won't do that because the bus is only every 2 hours, you know? So, okay.
But they will park in Nant Gwynant because it's only a 5-minute ride up to Gyda. And when all the verges are parked on and the free parking in front of Damien's, there's 150 cars and they can all have free parking up to Penna Pass.
Okay.
187 Ira on Saturday on both sides of the road.
Yeah.
Okay. Judith?
I just had another question about the clearway, really. If that is proposed to go ahead, would it be possible to have an on-the-ground meeting with the residents? Because if it stops at the top of the hill, it would just mean that section from the top of the hill to the lake is the same problem, which is narrow verge, and people will be on the road on a corner because they'll be pushed to there. That was my first thing. So would it be possible to have an on-the-ground meeting? And the other thing is, if the clearway was put in, what management would be put in to do that? Because people will come, they'll come in their cars, they'll still want to park. Unless there's on the ground management of that, I don't understand what will happen. I think people will just still park on the clear. It still doesn't solve the problem, does it?
Okay, good. I could see, just before Iwan answers that, I could see Dylan's screen there with hand up. Yeah, would you like to come in as well?
Yeah, I was just going to back up what Jude was saying. It's a big concern to me if it ended by Red Dragon, because actually I tend to, so this is just from my experience, because I don't go up that way towards Llanberis at the weekends. I totally avoid going that way because it's just so busy generally. So usually if we go out at the weekend, we go over to like Blaena, or where did we go? Cumberstradlin. We just try and escape the madness here, basically. So I see what's going on down towards Jude's and Red Dragon. And yeah, it's just to reiterate the worry that, you know, all the work that's been done at Gyda, you know, it is just pushing it all down to Nant Gwynant totally. I mean, this is really what's happened. You know, Nant Gwynant does have a big attraction for people because it is free parking. You've very close access to a footpath. A lot of people that come here, they're not going up Snowdon, they're just going to the waterfalls or into the woods. But I think it is certainly seen, and I see this when I see people on the footpath and chat to people. You know, people come here because it's easy access, it's free parking, and it's just moving people on from where they used to park, basically. And I just think an urban clearway there that ended there, I don't really, I mean, a rural clearway, I mean, I don't really understand how it'd work. I'd need to know more about that. But I just think if you stopped it there, it's going to push it further down towards Glandinas, further down towards the lake, which I've got massive safety concerns about. Like, you know, I'd be really surprised if there isn't a really bad accident this year, especially, you know, quite often people have been stuck behind somebody. So people are quite frustrated. A lot of overtaking goes on there. So it is a bit of a dangerous point. And it would shove people up the 10-mile road as well, you know. And I just feel really sorry for Paula. There's me looking at all these cars like going, and probably one of them was Paula's car. Paula, you should just come and park here next time. It's just rubbish though, isn't it? It's just the situation's just, and it's a really, really complex situation. I just don't know where we're going to go with it, but something, I mean, this, let's be honest, you know, we don't have a solution, and this year is just going to be hell. And I would really like to keep the cones on the junction for Llindy if that's possible, because I do think, even though it hasn't worked totally, it has made a massive difference. I can actually get out now, whereas before we couldn't get out onto the main road. So if cones are being taken away, if they could be kept on the junction here, I'd really appreciate that. So yeah, and it'll just get shoved down. Whatever we do, it's just going to get pushed down, further down the valley. We're going to keep pushing these cars further and further away, you know, until the solution's actually found.
Okay, thank you. That's really, really interesting. Okay, Iwan, I'll bring you back in os bosib, just i egluro. From what I've understood, Iwan, we're now not, the rural clearways now not considered appropriate because of what everyone's saying here, yeah? So we need an individual plan, yeah?
Yeah, I think just a blanket rule of freeway, I think, is not going to resolve the issues which has been brought, all the issues has been brought forward. As a result, we need to reassess our plan. In terms of the extent of the clearway, I think that might be something that we need to look at and review maybe an initial thought on how far the clearway or any restrictions will be extended on a particular section of road. The second question that's been raised was in terms of enforcement. So over the summer in the Gwynant Pass area, we introduced a new enforcement system where on clearways there was an option for our traffic wardens to either place a ticket on a vehicle or even arrange by collaborating with the police, arrange for that car to be towed away. So in terms of enforcement, there are quite strict enforcement measures that we could introduce if restrictions or if there's a lot of people disrespecting the restrictions that we put in place.
Okay, so I'm sure everyone wants to know what's going to happen next and how long that may take and when may they see some changes happening. Do we have any idea of that? Okay, so the issue that we have is that obviously we have to give the same attention to all the different communities within Gwynant. My initial thought with this was to introduce it as what we call an experimental order, which meant we could have got something in before the summer. However, because of the complexities of the design and the amount of consultation that's needed, I don't believe that timescale will be realistic. And an experimental order is the right way to approach it as a result of the complexities of what needs to be done. If it was a simple clearway, stop parking altogether, yes, you would be the experimental order would have been the way forward. As a result, we need to go back to the drawing board. So, in terms of our timescales, I think even for this summer, I think is getting the cones right will be our main priority, and make sure that we are placed to restrict the amount of parking where it's dangerous and it's not needed. Okay, so just what's the best solution for that, of getting the cones right then? Yeah, so if there are sections which you believe that requires more cones, please let us know, and then we'll obviously do an assessment of that. So the kind of stuff that you've been telling us is there are certain areas which would benefit from additional cones, so we could move things around or even add additional cones. Okay, Jude, would you like to come in?
Sorry, just on a sort of positive, I know you try and put out lots of messaging and stuff about parking and park and rides. Is it possible to message that there is limited parking in Nant Gwynant, or an alternative for where you could go? Because as we said before, people are going to turn up and what they've decided they're coming here, they're going to park. So if that could go in their head beforehand, if you want to go up Snowdon, you're better off parking in Llanberis where there is parking than parking is limited. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to suggest the same thing, or ask you if it was possible to maybe get some temporary signage in if it's going to be cold for this summer, that we have that kind of event signage encouraging people based on what Ira was saying about all of those people going on the bus, that we actually have signs saying please park at Nant Peris for a Rwyddfa for Snowdon. Is that something that we could potentially think about, Iwan?
I think the question is, how do we get the message out? We do have signs up in various locations indicating that there is a park and ride provision in Nant Paris. So I'm just questioning whether if additional signs will make a difference, but we can definitely look into it, especially if we've got cones out there. There's no reason why we couldn't put yellow signs with information explaining to people where they could park, I suppose.
Are we talking about signs in Nant Gwynant? Or are we talking about signs at Penygyrid where people are coming through, or somewhere else? Are we talking about preempting the problem, or are we talking about putting a sign where people have driven to expect to park and then think, oh God, I've got to go back up the pass now,
Yeah.
or what, you know?
That was my thought more, that like, I don't know where the parking information is on the National Park website or something. Could it say that parking is limited? I don't really know. It's sort of off the top of my head, that sort of idea, really.
Yeah, it does already say that, and we've got a messaging system. Our comm system at the moment is about how to park. If you're going to the walking path, we've got, you know, a sustainable way to do that, and we're encouraging people to use the bus, park in port, or to use different car parks from Nant Gwynant.
Okay.
But we've also got the trunk roads are looking at putting in signage from the kind of Conway side, from Betws-y-Coed, Capel Curig side, to explain more about where to turn and the fact that there's pre-booking in Pen-y-Pass and you need to go to Nant Peris. And Gwynedd Council have already arranged signs in Llanberis and Nant Peris, which obviously explains about the pre-booking and where to park for Rwyfa there. So my suggestion would be that that's reinforced by signage in Nant Gwynant if there's cones there, because people turn up, see there's cones, they can't park, but then they need to know where they can go. That would be my thinking, but I'd bow to Iwan's knowledge there of, you know, how people behave in that situation.
Can I make a point before we go over to Iwan? Whilst a certain amount of signage is good, of course, once people have got here, that's where they want to be. They've often driven from Manchester, they've got kids in the car, they've got, you know, a day to run. I think given the amount, you know, we've got a delay now in resolving some of these problems. Even though, with all the will in the world, we have to, it's a very complex situation. And I think I've discussed with Jude how many people there are at Pen-y-Pass giving out information, steering people towards alternative parking. When I go down here on a busy bank holiday day, people are just lost, not knowing what to do or where to go. They don't know where Snowdon is. Is it that way? Is it that way? Is it that way? And there is no presence here whatsoever. And we have actually just, you know, managed to be slotted into the sort of area where, okay, I take it there are signs on the website and information there, but on a busy bank holiday, I haven't seen anybody here.
Yeah, I mean, just to answer to that very quickly, we have recruited more seasonal staff, and we have prioritised that the information van will be based down in Nant Gwynant on at least one day of the weekend. And obviously our volunteer programme in partnership with others here has started up again now, so there will be much more presence from now on. So yeah, we've put that as a priority area based on obviously last year as well. But yeah, you know, we're very thin on the ground and we need more people on the ground. We're very aware of that.
And from the highways point of view, once those verges have been
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Ira. Okay, really important point. So I can see 3 hands up and we've only got 5 minutes, so just like to hear as much as possible. So Damien, your hand was up first.
Yeah, sorry. My point was kind of already covered there, but I just wanted to say there's a 500-foot lay-by in Nant Gwynant. It'll accommodate around about 80 cars. There's the car park there. I don't know off the top of my head how many spaces are in it. There's about 50. I think on top of that, there just isn't the infrastructure within Nant Gwynant to support anymore. And that's about all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Dan?
What's the deal if somebody moves the cones and parks the van? So there's somebody that done that very thing this weekend, and somebody moved cones around and then parked the van inside the cones. So what happens then? Obviously, we'll take pictures and send them to you, but is that a tow weighing offence?
Yeah, I'll leave you one to answer that one.
It could be if the police believes it now causes an obstruction, but it will be difficult for us as a local authority to tow away the vehicle, so or act as a result. The cones are just visual at the moment. They're not enforceable.
They're a deterrent. They're a deterrent. I asked the police and they said, actually, they're just a deterrent. There's nothing we can do.
Elgar?
So ynglyn â'r pwynt efo'r cons, fwy na'm byd. Mae yna lefydd eraill llawn, so os fedrith rhywun feddwl, sy'n ni'n mynd back to basics a chwilio am rhywle i wneud maes parcio, achos fel mae pethau'n gweithio ar hyn o bryd, does ddim byd o gwbl yn mynd i symud ymlaen. Mae yna ambell safle wedi cael ei edrych yn efo, a mae'r 2 safle yno, dwi'n gwybod amdano fo, y 2 safle gweitha bosib yn Nant Gwynant. Mae yna ambell safle arall, dwi'n gwybod sef pawb ddim yn cytuno, ond mae yna un safle fysa yn Llyndi, ac o'n i wedi meddwl fysa yna rhywun o'r ymddiriedolaeth yma heno, Trystan neu Simon, ond ta waeth, i drafod hynny, ond dwi'n gwybod, fysa'n syniad mynd yn ôl i sbio ar hynny, achos mae pawb eisiau gweld bobl yn dŵad i Nant Gwynant, yn dydi? Wel, waith ni heb a trio lladd arnyn nhw gymaint hynny, achos mewn un ffordd neu gilydd, da ni'n dibynnu arnyn nhw. Wedyn, waith ni trio cydweithio a byw efo nhw. Na, wneud pethau'n anodd, wedyn ie, dwi'n gwybod.
Wel, jyst ar Llyndi, nathon ni wneud astudiaeth cwmpasu efo'r ymddiriedolaeth genedlaethol llynedd ar y safle yna, ac oedd o wedi cael ei asesu fel ddim yn pwrpasol ar gyfer maes parcio.
Do, yr un gosat y ffordd, wel, sy'n chi'n fyny chdi bach wedyn.
Y 2 gafodd ei edrych ar, achos mae yna lôn yn mynd i fewn hefyd, so allech chi defnyddio'r lôn i fynd i fewn at yr un mwy yn bellach o'r ffordd, ie? Hefyd.
Ia.
So, ie, gafodd y 2 i edrych ar. Os na unrhyw le mae unrhyw un arall yn gallu cynnig, please, dewch i ni ac nawn ni astudiaeth arno fo. Ac oedd hwnna, wrth gwrs, just dros dro hefyd, os o'n i yn mynd i creu rhywbeth fel yna, fel peilot. Ond eto, o be ni wedi glywed gan arbenigwyr arall ydy, os da chi'n creu capacity, da chi hefyd yn attractio capacity fwy, so mae fwy o bobl mynd i ddwad. Felly mae o'n anodd iawn, ia, mae'n cyfyngedig iawn, ond os da unrhyw syniadau, please, dewch yn ôl ato ni, achos dyn ni'n teimlo, os oedd na solution, sef wedi cael ei wneud erbyn hyn, dwi'n siŵr ohono fo, ond please dyna beth dyn ni eisiau wneud, a dyn ni amlwg yn gweithio mewn partneriaeth efo pawb yn yr ardal i wneud hynny. OK. Catrin, ti ddim eisiau dod i fewn na? Dwi'n mynd i ddeud yr un.
Na, o'n i jyst yn mynd i ddeud yr union ben ysdi ddeud, Angela, efo'r astudiaeth yna'n Llyndy.
Eira?
Be oedd y rhesymau na fysa ddim posib gwneud parcio yn Llyndy?
Dio ddim yn ddigon diogel, mae'r troiad i fewn ddim yn ddigon diogel chwaith, ac y prif peth oedd y llifogydd yn yr ardal, dydy'r tir ddim yn addas i gael ceir arno fo, ac mae'n sawl un arall, ond y prif reswm oedd hwnna.
Ond da ni yn mynd da ni'n cicio'r pel o gwmpas, fel mae Elgan yn deud. Da ni yn dibynnu, da ni'n edrych ymlaen at gweld digon o bobl sy'n gallu parcio, ond wedyn, sa da ni'n gallu wneud parcio dros dro, fedra ni ddim dwad â bobl i fewn i'r ardal yn saff, a dydwch bod na gwaith yn cael ei wneud ar y troiad i mewn, dwi'n meddwl, i'r cae sy'n reit wrth ymyl y ffordd. Mae bobl yn gwneud gwaith ar gateways, ar ffyrdd i fewn. Fysa ddim posib ail-edrach ar hwnna, fel mae Elgan yn deud. Mae bobl yn rhoi Bailey Bridges i fewn, gwneud troiadau mawr. Achos da ni mewn catch-22 sefyllfa yn Nant Gwynant wan, yn trio wneud hyn, a mae rhywbeth yn rwla yn mynd i orfod troed. Fatha cymuned, da ni angen bobl yn dwad yma. Does a ddim posib sbio ar hwnna?
Ie, na codi fo eto, ond just fel ydych chi'n gwybod, dim ond dros dro fydd o, felly just y 28-day rule, fydd o'n addas amdan, fydd o ddim yn gweithredu trwy'r flwyddyn, achos oherwydd mae o'n Special Area of Conservation ac mae o'n agos at, mae o'n floodplain, dio ddim yn mynd i gael planning permission i gael maes parcio parhaol yna, so dim ond am mis fydd o'n gweithredu.
Ydy hynna'n rhywbeth sydd wedi digwydd yn rhywle arall? Oes na parking yn Nant Peris yn y ffarmwr na sydd dros dro? Dechreuodd hwnna fatha parking dros dro?
Yn union, ac mae yna hawl i unrhyw ffarmwr agor i geie dros dro am 28 days, i fyny at 28 days. Oes.
Cyn bellad a bod y ffordd i fewn iddo fo, ac allan ohono fo, yn saff am hwnni.
Ie, ac mae gyfrifoldeb nhw wedyn i rhedeg o hefyd. So, os mae unrhyw beth yn mynd yn wrong, amlwg mae'r gyfrifoldeb ar y tirfeddanwyr wedyn. So, achos dewis nhw ydi o, ac mae nhw yn gallu codi cost amdano fo hefyd yn amlwg, i fyny at 28 days yn unig. Elgan, mae dy law dal i fyny, ti eisiau dod nôl i fewn?
Na, dwi'n meddwl bod i lawr rwan. Ond oedd y tir, dwi'n meddwl am ddau gau arall yn Llyndy sydd yn wahanol i'r rhai sydd gafodd i rhoi ger bron yr ymchwiliad neu llynedd. Wedyn, maen nhw'n nes i fyny am yr adeiladau, mae hynny bendant ddim ar floodplain.
Oce. Ac tir y trust ydi heina?
Tir y trust ydi o.
Oce. Wel, na i pasio hynna ymlaen, i Tristan a Simon, ac gofyn iddyn nhw, eto. Achos,
fel dwi'n dweud, fydd rhaid gwneud rhywbeth, achos mae damweiniau, maen nhw'n mynd i ddigwydd, mae yna ddamwain. Ac yn anffodus i ni, person person lleol sy'n mynd i ddioddau. Ddim rhywun diarth sy'n mynd i frifo, ond rhywun lleol hollol sydd yn y lle rong yr amser rong. Da ni fel cymuned, da ni yn poeni a da ni yn chwilio. Da ni'n cwyno mwyn cwyno. Da ni fodlon sbio ar wahanol opsiynau, ond fel dwi'n dweud, gan bod yr opsiynau mor fach, dwi'n gwybod, mae rhaid ni fynd yn ôl, dwi'n meddwl bod rhaid ni gymryd cam yn ôl a just mynd yn ôl i sbio ar rhywbeth hawdd gyntaf heb fynd i ormod o ormod o drafferth. Ond, na fo.
Allu di anfon yr leoliadau sydd mewn golwg efo chdi i fi, jyst fel bod fi'n gallu rhoi nhw i codi nhw efo Tristan. Catrin.
Ie, dwi'n meddwl efo'r lleoliadau yna, efallai bod yr ymddiriedolaeth wedi ystyried nhw'n y gorffennol, ond dwi'n meddwl bod nhw wedi dod i'r casged bys yna ddim modd ymestyn y ffordd mwyn medru cael car yn dod y ddwy ffordd, bod yna ddim posib wneud y ffordd digon llydan neu rhywbeth i fedru cael, achos efo gymaint o hynny o geir, annog gymaint o hynny o geir i fynd yna, sa'n rhaid cael modd i ddau gar felly pasio i gilydd lle, a bod na ddim posib gwneud hynna yn fanno. Ond ia, allwn ni ofyn ail holi medran, Angela.
Ond efo hynny, mae yna garpac i fyny'n gallu ago fyny uwch ben castell yma, a does bendant ddim lle i ddau gar basio i gilydd heibio castell yma. Wedyn, dwi'n gwybod sut mae hynny'n dod fewn i'r agenda o gwbl.
OK. Yeah, great. Diolch Elgan, diolch Catrin. OK, Damien.
I just wanted to say, is there anything going to be done? Because the impression I'm getting is we're at the same place we were at the last meeting, where nothing's going to be done until several meetings and plans and ideas. But what I'm taking away is nothing's going to be done before summer. Okay. Or certainly after. Nothing's going to be done this year, but before trying to accommodate tourists and parking every man and his dog, shouldn't we be looking at the residents first? I appreciate there's a cafe in Gwynant, but they've done all right so far. You know, the previous 4 years or whatever have been fine with just the parking and the lay-by. Okay. But something has to be done because people are moving away. Yeah. And I know Paul and Ali moved away for the exact same reason. Because of the parking and stuff. Okay, yeah, agreed. I think they'll let you just conclude, but I think what we've agreed now is that there's going to be definitely reconsideration of the cones, Ioania, and we're certainly going to look at potentially signage to back that up then in the area. And then anything else that you want to just finish off with?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we're going to obviously relook at the cones and the signage. And the temporary signage as a short-term measure. Now the long-term measure, and I'm saying long-term, but I am hopeful that there will be some impetus on trying to move this forward as soon as possible. Is to get a parking design or parking restriction design, especially for the area, and try to get that agreed with all parties really.
Okay. Diolch. Elgan hen llaw wedi hwnna, ia? OK. Ira, yn gyflym iawn os gwelwch na?
Fysa posib cael cyfarfod ma na le i'r Zoom meetings, achos da ni'n gyd yn gorfod dreifio a parcio a lot o'r rhesymau eraill. Dwi'n meddwl, da ni gyd yn Nant Gwynant eisiau cymryd i ystyriaeth be mae pawb angan, ag ydych chi'n ffeindio na dydy cyfarfodydd ar y ddaear ddim yn gweithio, tag ydych chi'n meddwl yn y sefyllfa yma, yn lle bod ni'n neud be da ni wedi neud yn barod, sef da ni eisiau cones yn fanna, da ni eisiau cones yn fanna, da ni eisiau parking yn fanna, mae angan hyn, da ni ddim yn cael o'i gyd efo'i gilydd. A wedyn beth sy'n digwydd ar diwedd cyfarfod Zoom, da ni gyd yn troi yn cyfrifiadur I ffwrdd, a does a neb yn gwybod beth sy'n mynd I ddigwydd.
Ie. Oce, digon teg, ie, cytuno, yr unig reswm ydy I gael hein fel hyn ydy I gael pawb yma, twyd, yn haws, de, ac wrth gwrs y partneriaid fel arfer hefyd. Ond, Iwan, dyn ni sôn am yr wythnos nesaf, rili, neu'r pethefnos nesaf I edrych ar y cones, ia? A cystyried eich rhyw signage plan, achos dyn ni'n ymwybodol bod hyn eisiau digwydd wwan, ia?
Ie, byddwn ni'n edrych arno fo cyn, wrth gwrs, gwrdd banc nesaf sy'n dod I fyny sef y Jubilee. Sy'n cael bod yna newidiadau yn cael ei wneud erbyn hynny.
Oce.
Ie. O ran y cynllun hir dymor, wrth gwrs, mae'n mynd am wedi cymryd dipyn fwy amser.
Oce, so os na modd yn ni trefnu cyfarfod ar y ddeiar mewn 2 wythnos, 4 wythnos, a wedyn fwyd yn ôl iddyn ni, a wedyn glywed gan pawb hefyd a be mae Eira yn sôn amdan?
Ie, wel, mae jyst y mater o unwaith mae wedi digwydd, gweld pa fath o effaith mae'n wedi gael, a wedyn bod chi fel tegolion wedyn yn bwydo fewn unrhyw adborth iddyn ni rhan os beth wedi gweithio, gweithygu neu beth bynnag.
Oes posib cymryd I ystyriaeth bod be mae Damien yn deud am parking I trigolion. Ydych chi'n deud, does a ddim byd I wneud amdan hynna?
So, mae dibynnu os ydy'r lleoliadau yn dod I fyny I rheola neu canllawiau cyflwyno lleoliadau I tegolion Cyngor Gwynedd. Mae gennym ni ffordd eraill o wneud o, ac ella nawn ni edrych I fewn i'r canllawiau efo hynny, ond dwi'n meddwl dod nôl ata chi efo unwaith da ni wedi cael ddau neu pwy bynnag fydd yn edrych I fewn o cael well dealltwriaeth o polisiau ni a hefyd y canllawiau cyfreithiol efo cyflwyno math yma bethau. Hefyd, beth sy'n teddol o ddigwydd ydy da ni'n gael gweithredu nôl rheola a weithiau ti'n gallu cyflwyno pethau a bod o ddim cweit yn ôl y rheola a ti'n gael ddal allan a wedyn mae'r holl peth yn disgyn y ddarn a wedyn o ran y hawl gyda ni eflodi ag hawl gyda ni I gyflwyno be byddwn ni'n neud. Mae lot o cyfeithwyr allan a lot o bres yn edrych ar be mae cyngor yn neud I jecio bod nhw'n dilyn y rheola grŵp.
Ie, dwi yn meddwl mae rhaid, fel mae Damien yn deud, mae bobl yn symud I ffwrdd a heb bobl yn byw yn y tai ar y ffordd fawr. Mae o'n rhan mawr o'r cymuned.
It is, and to be honest with you, I know you say there's legal aspects and you've got the eyes of lawyers and solicitors on you, but what you've got to be thinking is outside my house, they're triple parked. If one of my family gets hit by a car, that's when the solicitor's eyes are going to be poking around all over the place. It's not acceptable. It's not safe. I don't see how anyone can see that it's safe. It's ridiculous. It's like this weekend, I've sent some pictures and I know how you feel like trying to pull out of the junction in Llindy. I'm trying to get out of that lay-by where there's a car. They're parked outside the embarkation. I mean, it doesn't matter to me because I can't park there anyway. So it's just dangerous. Someone's going to get hurt.
Okay, thank you, Damien. Yeah, some really important points. Okay, so I'm just very aware of the time. Fyddwn ni'n, colli gyfieithu hefyd, wan. Felly, diolch yn fawr fel arfer I chi gyd yn troi allan ac nawn ni anfon hyn ymlaen I pwy bynnag sydd ddim yma heno. Ac nawn ni dod nôl fydd Catrin, dwi'n siŵr yn cadw mewn cysylltiad efo chi. Ac fyddwn ni'n neud yn gorau glas I gael o leia y cones ar arwyddio mewn lle yn mor fuan a phosib ac yn edrych nôl elgan os ydych chi yn anfon ymlaen yr leoliadau yna na'n mynd yn ôl at yr ymddiriedolaeth genedlaethol hefyd eto. Cynan, really, I can see you, I'm not sure who that is, but sorry, it says Cynan. Can you unmute or?
Sorry, you just asked about as giving feedback. Do you want us to carry on giving that to Catherine, or you asked about feedback? So do we contact you directly, and how? Where do you want that feedback? Or the continuing conversation?
Yeah. What would you prefer, Iwan? Catherine to send it on to you, or us to send it on to you? That's what's been happening at the moment, yeah?
I think it seems to be working because it allows all authorities then to be aware of what's going on. The issue is if you just give it to me, then obviously other officers are not fully aware of what's happening.
Yeah. So Jude, if you just carry on with how you're doing it now, that's what we send everything on, obviously, to you, and that you send to us. Sorry, I'm not sure. Is it?
Sorry, Jones yma. The iPad fi ddim yn gweithio. Dwi'n cael cymethig cyrriadur y gŵr. Ond just gofyn ydw I please, dwi'n cynrychioli hefyd y cyngor cymuned beth gela ti yma. Fysa chi please yn gyrru gwybodaeth drwy'r gyfarfod i'r cyngor cymuned. Mae elgan yma, ond dwi'n bod yn aelodau eraill o'r cyngor, allos yn y syniadau hefyd.
Yeah, okay.
Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Okay, thank you everyone. Diolch yn fawr iawn pawb, and we will follow up as soon as possible. So, and keep in touch, please. Yeah. Okay, diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch pawb.